Side 4. Offer of Immortality.
Many of you who are here tonight have heard several of the Massey College ghost stories, and there are some who have heard them all, and all of them true. Yet I have never felt justified in taking the ghosts for granted. I have never dared to think, oh, one pops up every year and it's sure to appear on time. Ghosts do not like to be taken for granted, just as they do not like to be given orders. You will understand why I was uneasy. This is my last year as master of Massey College, and I should have liked to round out my time here by telling you of yet another ghost. However, 'tis not in mortals to command success. I have no ghost for you. However, there was something, circumstances of which I ought to inform you, though when you have heard them, you will understand my reluctance in making them known. Not a ghost, no, but something not quite in the common run of affairs. Oh, that I had the resolution to stop now, to say no more, but here it is. It happened at the end of November, when we held our last high table for this year. We don't have high tables in December because the college dance and this affair are our offerings of hospitality during the Christmas season. Hospitality. It is one of the guiding lights of this college. Every honor, every consideration for our guests. That is our somewhat old-fashioned principle. A guest here is sacred. On the Friday afternoon, when we were getting ready for a high table, Miss Whalen received a telephone call from Dr. Walter Zing, the distinguished medical scientist and a senior fellow. I hope it won't upset the arrangement of the table too much, said he, but I should greatly like to bring a visitor who has arrived unexpectedly from South America, a scientist of international renown from Bogota, Professor J.M. Murphy. Well, that was easily arranged, and when the list of guests was being prepared, Miss Whalen discovered that the university from which Professor Murphy came was founded in 1572, which makes it substantially our senior, and that it must also be one of the most exalted universities in the world, for it stands 9,000 feet above sea level. But when she finally ran the professor down in an academic directory, it said only that he was a world leader in cryonics, and that his full name was Jesus Maria Murphy. This did not trouble me. South America is full of the descendants of Irish immigrants who retain their Irish names, although they are now almost wholly of Spanish and Indian blood. Jesus Maria Murphy would cause no more raised eyebrows in Colombia than such a name as Mackenzie King Stacy might in Canada. I didn't know what cryonics was, but I didn't need to know. Professor Zing would take care of all that. I was not prepared, however, for the figure who appeared in the senior common room under the wing of Dr. Zing. I say under the wing advisedly, for Professor Murphy came no higher than the doctor's waist. He was the tiniest human being that I have ever seen, but that was not the only thing that gave him an air of unreality. His complexion was so rich in color, and his hair was so glossily black that he looked like a beautifully made doll. Hair dye and an almost operatic amount of makeup. Strange in an academic, but these are permissive times. When I took his hand, it was like a tiny claw and extraordinarily cold. So cold I almost dropped it in surprise. When I am disconcerted, I take refuge in extreme heartiness and good fellowship, which, as most of you know, is no indication of my true nature. That is what I did when I felt that cold, cold hand. Welcome, Professor Murphy, I roared. What good fortune for us that you are able to dine here tonight. He responded with what I suppose he meant for a reciprocal exuberance. In a thin, high voice, very much like Punch in the puppet shows I used to see in London, he replied, "That's what you think, eh? Lucky for you, eh? Just luckier than you know." I introduced Professor Murphy to some of the others who had assembled for dinner. Quite without self-consciousness, he skipped up on top of the table and stood there, so as to be able to address them face to face. When an opportunity came, I looked inquiringly at Professor Zing. He was blushing. "Never saw him before," he said. "My have to take care of him over the weekend, keeping off big dogs and mean children and that sort of thing. The professor looks to me as if he knew how to look after himself, said I. Certainly he had no trouble at dinner. With that exquisite courtesy for which Massey College is famous, our librarian had seen that 3 volumes of the Oxford English Dictionary were on his chair, so that he would be at no disadvantage. And there he sat, perched on N to Poi, chattering away happily to Dr. Swinton, a man with an insatiable appetite for scientific curiosities. On Murphy's other side sat Professor Hume, the master designate, and I knew that those 2 experienced hands at college hospitality would take good care of our strange guest. But I noticed that although he chased our good dinner around his plate with his knife and fork, he ate nothing and drank no wine. Our steward, Mr. Stojanovic, appeared beside my chair. That little gentleman, that Professor Murphy, asked if he might have some of his favorite drink. Well, certainly, if we have it, I said. We have it, said Mirsha. It is vinegar. Give him the best we have, said I. An odd request, I thought. Vinegar is, of course, a solution of acetic acid made, as the dictionary explains, from inferior wines. Canada, which yields place to no country in the world in the production of inferior wines, has first-rate vinegar. Mirsha returned, bearing a demijohn, which he showed me in the distinguished manner that adds so much to college functions. I took a little in a glass and rolled it thoughtfully over my palate. It was a rich, full Loblaw 1980. I nodded approvingly. Our guest was served, and I was interested to observe that he smacked his lips, and after 2 quick glasses showed an increase of his former lively spirits. Nor was that the end of it. When we went downstairs for more conversation and wine, Professor Murphy insisted that the vinegar jug go with him, and he nipped away all evening, consuming more in liquid volume than any 4 of the rest of us. This was eccentric, certainly, but nothing more. However, when we were parting for the night, the strange guest seized me by the hand and hissed, "I must talk to you." "If you wish," I said. "I'll ask Professor Zing to bring you into my lodgings." No, said little Murphy. "Get rid of Zing. Tell Zing to go hang." As Professor Zing was standing right beside him, this was rude. But Professor Zing is not a man to lose his dignity. He smiled courteously at Jesus Maria Murphy, bowed very slightly, and left the room. But I thought there was an air of relief in his manner. In no time at all, I found myself sitting in my study, facing Professor Murphy, who was curled up in my big chair with his 3rd demijohn of vinegar, freshly opened, sitting on the floor beside him. A hospitable thought struck me. Would you like to use the plumbing?" I asked. After all, the law of gravity dictates that so much liquid intake must at some point impose this necessity. "Use what?" he hissed. Oh, the excusado. No, never go. Foolish. You shall find out why." I can't say I like the sound of that, but the professor was hurrying on. "Hey, you, Davies, you old man now, huh? You getting out of here? They kick you out, no?" "Decidedly no," I said, with some austerity, for I did not like his tone. "I am retiring, and the college has shown me every courtesy, as is its custom." Yeah, but you sorry to go. You want to know what's going to happen, huh?" "Well, naturally I do. I am the first master of this college. I hope the first of a long and splendid line. Not to be curious about the future would be impossible, though I know how ridiculous any such desire must be." "Why ridiculous?" "Well, because of the brevity of human life." "Not brief at all. You're not a scientist, huh?" "No," said I. "Insofar as it is possible to sum up what I am a student of literature, with a psychological bias." "Oh, Holy Mother of God," said Professor Murphy. "How you people spend your time. Still, I was just thought an idiot when I was your age. A few 100 years ago, I wasn't even a priest. Our university was started by priests way back in the days of the Spanish conquest. I was one of the founder and sub-rector for many years. But it's not easy to be a Spanish priest in the South American mountains. Not if you have any real intelligence. Not if you see what is Right under your nose. I thought it better to humor this madman. Was he really claiming to be something like 450 years old? So you became an unbeliever, I said. I never. Unbeliever, a fool. Worse than unilluminated believers. I became an illuminated believer. I expanded my realm of belief. I became an alchemist. An alchemist, said I. Making gold and that sort of thing? Pah! He said, and a good deal of saliva sprayed across the room at me. I spit on gold. In South America, it's gold everywhere, kicking along the ground. No, I studied life. And as time went on, and science began to lift its head above the rubbish of faith, the illumination came, and by the middle of the 19th century, I was one of the earliest biologists. Is it widely known that you have had such a long and interesting life? I said. No, better not, said he. I change my name from time to time. Give up being priest, though I am still a good Catholic. But that's why I'm now Murphy. Lots of Murphys in Colombia. I can speak Irish. Huh? Big Gora. May your shadow never grow less. Devil take you, damn your eyes, Mother McCree. Jas, and now I am Professor Murphy, and head of a very big scientific section in our university. And what brings you to Canada? I said. I am scouting for candidate, said he, looking at me with extreme cunning. For your faculty, said I. No, for my Instituto Crionica da Colombia. But we have strayed. We talked about your curiosity regarding the future of this college. There are lots of ways of finding out, you know. Such as, said I. Well, gematria, for one, said he. Gematria, the Kabbalah of numbers. How often had I not heard of it, that elaborate, ancient, but surely mad science of divination practiced so long by the Jews, and part of the structure of their medieval scholasticism. I looked at Murphy with new eyes. But surely gematria is known only among the Jews, said I. If you live long enough and survive strongly enough, the Jews begin to think you must be one of themselves, and they tell you secrets, said Murphy. You want to know how gematria works? Of course I did. Then you must understand that numbers are the most important things under heaven. All is number, and God is the God of numbers. I suppose you know Hebrew, eh? I've allowed it to grow a little rusty, I said, but I used to be able to read and write it pretty well. Ah, then you know that in Hebrew there are no special signs for numbers, but each letter of the alphabet has a numerical equivalent, and that means that every word has a numerical equivalent also. Yes. In the art of gematria, you divine serious things by reducing the appropriate word to their number equivalents, adding up those, then adding the integers of the sum again and again until you reach a number between 1 and 11. That number is the golden number and must be interpreted by knowledge of a very secret doctrine that embodies the rational pattern that lies beneath the seeming disorder of the universe. Yes, said I, but how are you going to make that work with English words? Hebrew suppresses all the vowels but A and lacks several of our letters. That is part of the tradition. You fill in the gaps with Greek letters that also have numerical equivalents. Greek alchemists, Jewish alchemists, they work hand in glove. It really does work, you know. You want to try? I think you want to demonstrate your skills, said I. Of course I wanted to try, but obviously I was not deceiving him. He went off into a fit of laughter, almost silent, producing a small noise like someone crushing tissue paper. You do not trust me, he wheezed. You think I am a magician, eh? And so I am, but not a false magician. I am a scientist, which is a modern magician. Long ago, when our university first began in 1572, they called me a black magician, and there are still some who make this sign against the evil eye when I pass them. But I wish you could trust me and let me be your friend, because I can help you greatly. Let us be friends in your Canadian manner. Call me Jesus. There is a Puritan buried within me. I secretly determined not to call him Jesus if I could possibly avoid it. I took refuge in cunning. "I'll do better than that," I said. "I'll call you, Josh. Jesus is the same as Joshua, and the short name for Joshua is Josh. You see?" "Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I see," said he, and I knew that he saw right through me and was laughing at my Protestant distaste. "Now, what shall we interpret, huh? This college, don't you think? What is its essence? What is at the root of it that will shape its destiny for centuries to come? And now wait! I must make myself ready." He sat very upright on my leather chair, his feet tucked under him, his eyes shut, and both his hands raised with the fingers extended. "Now," he said, "tell me the full name of this place, not too fast, so I can reduce it to numbers." "Massey College in the University of Toronto," said I, and as I spoke his fingers began to flicker rapidly, as if he were tapping the keys of some invisible calculator, and indeed that is just what he was doing. I realized that I was looking at calculation as it had been during the Middle Ages, before the coming of cheap pencils and paper pads and adding machines and computers. He had turned his 10 fingers into an abacus, nor did he hesitate for an instant before he spoke. 17 times 4 and 20 and 34 and 51 come to 146, said he. Add up the integral of 1, 4, 6, it comes to 11. Uh-oh, 11. Good or bad, said I, far more anxious than I wanted to reveal. Magnifico! The number of revelation! The number of great teachers and visionaries in religion, science, politics, and the art. It is the number of those who live by the inner vision. Dangerous, mind you, for some time 11 loves idea better than humanity, so that must be remembered and avoided. But what a golden number for a college. Oh, you need have no fear for this place. Thank you, Josh, I said. You give me great hope. I am only sorry that I shall not be here to see its fulfillment. How long have you been here? Said Professor Murphy. It will be 18 years next June, said I. But I began work on this place 20 years ago, on the 1st of January, 1960. Uh-huh. Well, that date and the year and the date of your birth, add the integral, and it comes to 30. 3. That is very good, because 3 is your golden number also. How do you know? Because I took trouble to find out before I came tonight. And I knew you for a 3 the minute I set eyes on you. So this is a happy coincidence, said I. There is no such thing as a coincidence, said Josh. Not in Gematria. It is all part of the numerical pattern that governs the world. Yeah, you were a good man to begin this place, but not to continue it. Why? I dreaded what he might say, but I had to know. Too flighty, said Josh. Lots of imagination, lots of invention, but there is a limit to what those things can do in a place like this. A place with the great 11 as its golden number. You are not always and in all things wholly serious. You have what we biologists call jokey genes. It's high time you went. Who is to come next? Professor Hume, said I. You sat beside him upstairs. Oh, yes. And I felt a very strange thing coming from him. That is why I had to have vinegar. He was heating me up, and I needed to reduce my body temperature. Tell me his full name. And once again Josh took his calculating posture. James Nan Patterson Hume, said I. Josh made his rapid flickering calculation, and then to my horror gave a pathetic little squeak and collapsed sideways. Had Pat Hume killed him? But I saw one of the tiny hands gesturing toward the vinegar bottle which sat on the floor at his side. In an instant I put it to his lips, and he drank, until there was not a drop left. His eyes opened slowly, but one was looking aloft while the other looked down, and from his tiny body mounted an overpowering reek of vinegar. If he had been drinking anything else, I would have sworn he was drunk. But vinegar? I must know. Jesus, I whispered, shaking him gently. Jesus. Are you pickled? He did not answer at once, but shook his head again and again, as if in wonderment. At last he spoke.
This place must have a very special destiny, he said. Its golden number is the great 11, and that is splendor sufficient. But this Hume, this Jaime Nel Patterson Hume, his golden number is also despampanante, the great 11. Work it out for yourself. 14 plus 6 plus 41 plus 20. And what have you?
How should I know, I said. I'm just one of your frivolous threes. I can't be expected to add in my head. What have you?
Padulaque, analphabet. You have 92, and even you should see that when you add the integers a 9 and 2, dog of a tree, you get 11. So this college, already shaped by 11, is now to have a master who is also an 11? And what will happen then? Oh, Romboso, Romboso.
His eyes seemed fixed upon some rosy vision. What will happen? Tell me, I said, shaking him.
Oh, do not ask me to tell, said Professor Murphy. Instead, why don't you join me in the great silent chamber of the immortal in the university at Bogota? And from time to time we shall come back here and behold with our own eyes the wonders that are sure to be brought forth.
I was mystified. Great silent chamber of immortals, I said.
You know of my work, said he. Am I not the prefectus of the Instituto Cironico of Bogota?
I suppose so, said I, not very tactfully, but what's cryonics?
Oh, you trees. You have the mind of ballet dancers. Cryonics, numbskull, is the science that will save mankind by preserving indefinitely the lives and the ability of people chosen for that purpose. It is achieved by a carefully calculated arrest of the cellular death, which eventually brings ordinary mortals to the point of physical and spiritual death. That arrest is managed by draining the body of most of its blood and substituting a formula for which ordinary vinegar may serve as a temporary substitute. Then the body is placed in a very cold chamber, and all its activities, but not its cellular life, are kept on ice, so to speak, until they are needed. Then a gradual melting out, and there's your man, practically as good as new, and in my case, more than 400 years old. Think what an accumulation of wisdom and experience that means. What we alchemists began so long ago as a search for the philosopher's stone was achieved in our Andean heights when we discovered, to hell with modesty, when I discovered that all that was needed was a sufficiently low temperature and plenty of vinegar. Now here is your chance, and you must be quick, for this evening has been an exhausting one for me. Will you fly back with me to Bogota? I promise you that in a week you will be emptied of your disgusting sick blood, and you will find yourself in a flask, reduced to the temperature of liquid nitrogen. All you have to do is leave a call at the desk, just like a motel, and in 100 years you will be shipped back here to see what this great college has achieved.
I was tempted. I confess I was tempted. But I thought I should first talk the matter over with my wife. Later, when I had Professor Murphy's calculations checked by a Jewish scholar at one of the synagogues on Bathurst Street, I discovered that my wife is also a 3, just as I am myself, and it is unwise to neglect her opinion. May I have till tomorrow to make up my mind, said I, and the professor's nod was so feeble that I became greatly alarmed about him. But we 3s have substantial powers of improvisation. It was clear that the professor was so overcome by what he had found out about Massey College that he needed first aid, and of a special kind. So I did my unscientific best. Taking him in my arms, I carried him up the back stairs to the college kitchen. It was like carrying a wineskin, for the vinegar within him kept sloshing around, most unaccountably. But I got him on one of the kitchen tables without having been seen during our wobbly progress through the college, and I undressed him right down to his skin. Former priest that he was, I was not surprised to find that he was wearing a tiny hair shirt, which is still in my possession, more or less, for Miss Whalen uses it as a tea cozy. I managed to rouse him sufficiently to drink a couple of large beakers of vinegar, and then I brought jugs of ice water, doused him thoroughly, and tucked him up for the night on a shelf in our large walk-in refrigerator. In that embracing chill, he fell instantly into a childlike sleep, and so I left him. I went immediately to my wife and put the great question up to her. Was I to go to Bogota and a chilly life eternal, in order that from time to time I might return to Massey College and spy on what my successors were doing? She thought for a while and then said, I wouldn't if I were you. Don't be a Massey College ghost. It would be most unbecoming. Don't you remember the line from our theater days? Superfluous lags the veteran on the stage. When you have made your exit, take off your costume, clean the assumed character off your face, and leave the theater. These were wise words, as I had expected them to be, so I went to bed, went to sleep, and forgot the whole matter. I was sharply reminded of it only last week, when we had our annual Christmas dance. The great feature of that affair is the buffet, which is a splendidly theatrical creation of which all the guests survey before they eat the miracles of cuisine that our chefs have prepared. Elegantly displayed turkeys, splendidly ornamented fish, jellies and potted meats pressed into fantastic and festive shapes, cream puffs filled with cream, so that their whiteness takes on the likeness of swans, wonderful little tartlets like jewels of topaz and ruby and emerald, cakes decorated in high Baroque style that are themselves the epitome of Christmas, and happy youth and good cheer. As always, I looked at it with pride. This was just the sort of show to appeal to a man whose golden number is 3. And then, I don't want to continue. I'd much rather not. But there are imperatives of historical truth which even a 3 dare not brush aside. There, at the center of the main table, was... No, I say. Well, it was a roast suckling pig. At any rate, that was the way it was garnished. Certainly it had an apple in its mouth, and around the little eyes were outlines of white icing. Tips of pink icing extended its ears, which were not wholly pig-like. I looked hopefully between the markedly unpig-like buttocks for a curly tail, but there was none. Turning to our bursar, Colin Freeson, I said, controlling my voice as best I could, that's unusual, isn't it? Where did you get it? Must have come in a big order, said he. Nobody seems to know anything about it. It is a novelty. Delicious. Vinegar cured, I should say. Try a bit of the crackling. But I declined. A flighty 3 I may perhaps be, but I can boast, as I hope all my successors will be able to boast, that I have never knowingly eaten a guest of this college.
For a catalog with more information about books on cassette, call 800-231-4261.